To be honest, welcome back, guys, to the fitness podcast that we have been debating just beforehand for the last 10 minutes. And basically, last week, something massive happened in probably social media. Again, it's something to do with Love Island and so on. A lot of you guys probably have seen this, and Molly May basically commented on we will have the same 24 hours. Now, the question is, do we all have the same 24 hours? And we were debating this just beforehand. So, Nate, obviously, do you want to fill people in on obviously what happened with this? And obviously, me and you kind of agreed on this because I think you posted it, and I was just 100% what's going on. I watched the video as well myself because I think context is really key when you watch the video. I think a lot of people sometimes just make memes, and then that's really it. So yeah, Nate, do you want to fill us in, and then let's just kick it off.
Basically, the synopsis is that this lady from Love Island who has done incredibly well since coming out of Love Island. Not like everybody else who comes out of Love Island where they send that they just become an influencer and get paid for promotion. She's legitimately set up multiple businesses. She's become a person that, you see her on the stories, work until 2 a.m. with the business manager, putting it in shifts wise, same as what we do with our businesses. So it's super, super relatable. No one sees it, but the graft is going on behind closed doors, but you only see the posts, or you see the paid influences, or you see her on a movie, or you see her in a stand and sponsored stuff of Boohoo or wherever she works. Obviously not Boohoo, but whatever, you get Misguided or whatever. And you just see that. So she goes on this, The Diary of a CEO by Steve Bartlett, which is a phenomenal podcast. And basically she makes reference to how everyone's still got the same 24 hours. She just makes use of it. And stuff like that. And I think that's probably paraphrasing, but effectively lots of people are rebuttal on Instagram and social media about how everyone's total 24 hours are not the same. You're just privileged. You've had thousands of followers. You've always been in the privileged position. So your 24 is not the same as someone else's that's on low income or just a normal person. And it just got me thinking about, firstly, the answers back to that from more educated individuals. So people that run businesses, they run CEOs. It was quite a divide. So people that ran their own businesses and people that had that understanding of what she was talking about was saying and supporting her and saying, well, it's more of a growth mindset. You have to think like that to be able to progress and be more motivated and put the work in the way that you need to. You need to think that. You need to maximize the 24 hours. However, other individuals that are probably not in the same status of being business owners or having that type of higher, position of thought process or growth mindset, were thinking that how could you say that no one's 24 hours is the same? I've got this, I've got that, you don't have that. And it just started being this kind of a feasting session on her thoughts. And it was mostly other women that were also then taking a chunk out of her. And I was sitting there going, I don't think that's particularly right from a standpoint of, I do agree that the hours in which you have in the daytime is also the same. We can't argue that there are 24 hours in a day. Let's look at the logical side of things first. There is 24 hours in a day, and there will be choices that you make in 10 years time or from 10 years ago that are having an impact on your ability to spend those 24 hours now. So, and someone I looked at one particular context of this woman who's on my stories. She's a really good friend of mine is his missus. So she was saying how we don't have the same 24 hours. I now have to look after a dog, and I've got got to do this today. I've got to do this today. And I'm just you chose to have a dog. And you're moaning about your 24 hours. Now, I chose to have a dog and I fucking moaned all the way through because it was fucking difficult. But equally, that choice has ramifications, right? And I'm a big believer of if you choose and you lie in your bed, you sleep in it too. So my thought process was and Emily will get to the female side of things, or probably why they're also rebuttaling that side, is that I believe that the choices that you made probably 5 years ago, the choices that you made a year ago, the choices that you made 6 months ago are having an impact on your responsibility today to not have the same opportunity to that same effect that she has. And you feel maybe trapped, or you feel like you don't have the same free time to express yourself in the way that you probably want to. But they're your choices at the end of the day for some of these things. We'll go into the whole female physiology in a minute, but there are people out there that are saying that, oh, woe is me, or I have this choice, or I have this responsibility. And that's what comes with when you make choices on your own. She chose to come out of Love Island and work her bollocks off, proverbially, and go to a situation where she's now in that mindset and has to be in that mindset to maximize what she's got to do today. And I think it's a mindset side of things versus the actuality of structure. Like the actuality of structure is, yet 24 hours is there, the sun goes down, everything wakes back up. You can wake up at 5, you can go to bed at 12, whatever you want to do, you can do that. But the mindset behind it is probably why she's so successful and why she's actually got to a point where she has over a short space of time. So it's really just probably a context of like understanding the mindset side, and people not really understanding why that mindset is really important and why having that mindset is probably a really fucking good attribute to why she's got to where she has right now.
Yeah. Take away the whole lot, because I didn't know who really she is, right? Like apart from like I had to Google her and be like, okay, she's like some sort of, she works for, is it Pretty Little Thing or something like that? She works as like a director, whatever. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I was thinking Stephen Bartlett got her because she's a creative for a big brand, right? But I obviously, like, I didn't know too much about her in like Love Island life and all that kind of stuff. So I was completely away from that. So I was thinking, what she said wasn't actually that bad, apart from, and what I mean by that is because she's saying like we all have the ability, like even if you work at Tesco's, give it your all at the job at Tesco's. So you can do whatever you can in terms of like there's a promotion, whatever it is. Because if you have that attitude of what Nathan you said, is like you blame others, you blame this, like eventually that will just, you're not going to get anywhere with that. And I think like we've all been part of like, you know, we've not all just been CEOs from day one or whatever, right? We all had to kind of work our way up and, you know, so on, and then now own businesses. We've all had to also work as hard as we possibly can. And I think that kind of resonates to me. I was like, yeah, I've grinded the shit out like my kind of career as well. Like I've never like kind of said, oh, this person's lucky for whatever reason. I just had to, I controlled what I can control, and that's it. And I think sometimes when I saw, and I realized it when I saw other social media, like people like putting, what they did was start making memes of like Marcus Rashford and her. And I'm like, he's probably the worst example right now because he's being terrible in the pitch, right? I know what he's done for the kids is amazing, but at the same time, it's like what he's doing right now is terrible in terms of football field. But I was like, there's nothing to do with each other. I know, why is everyone putting memes of him, you know, promoting stuff for the kids and then her saying you need to work hard? It's like, and sometimes I think it's more just to kind of fit in with the culture as well and just fit in with other people. It's like, if I create a meme, I'll get more retweets, I'll get more satisfaction, but that doesn't do anything to your actual life. So sometimes it's to do with the whole social media lifestyle rather than what she actually said, because half of them probably didn't even listen to the context. I guarantee you half of them didn't listen to the podcast, didn't listen to the context. That's another problem, right? We have in society, which is people will, headlines are made from, like, I remember this guy got to interview Adele from Channel 5 in Australia. But as soon as he arrived in England, he goes, oh, I haven't even actually heard Adele's music yet or her new album yet. She said, I'm canceling the interview. You even heard my music yet. What's the point? Right? So some people also have that ability to just make a judgment because other people have also made that judgment, or their friends or whatever. And they're like, oh, I think, yeah, she's an idiot. But then if you actually listen to something, you're like, actually, there's two sides of this, which I've seen a lot of people this week make that assessment of as well. So I know you kind of just heard about this like literally 10 minutes ago. So I would love to hear your kind of thoughts around this as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I will actually want to go and look at it. Just before anything else, like I know I said that I will disagree with you guys. I don't actually disagree with you guys. Life is all about the choices that we make, and it's how we feel about those choices that changes everything, right? So I don't think that she should be demonized for her choices and how she looks at the world. And at the end of the day, I really think that we all have to learn to respect other people's opinion of the world and what they want their world to look like and what's important to them, like people's priorities, because it comes down to priorities, doesn't it? But I don't think it's that black and white either, right? The fact is, as we were saying, I think women get triggered because women also have the biological burden, call it burden, but it's not a burden, the gift of birthing children, and they do become more restricted. They have roles that men cannot take on. And therefore, it's not the same 24 hours for the entity of your entire life. Like, sure, you choose to have kids, but so does the man. He still doesn't have to do that caring. So it's like, yes, I agree. Like we have the same 24 hours, but it's not 24 hours of every year of your entire life that's going to be the same. So it's not black and white. That was my first thing. And then also, I think women slay women because they also feel, either because they feel and you can't do mind reads, but either because they feel like it's like, oh, I wanted to have done that. So it's like a sense of like, I regret the choices I didn't make. Or there's this comparison thing, like, well, as you guys said before, like, oh, but she came out of Love Island, she got all of this money, so of course she's going to be successful. Like, so it's that comparison of like, and then not taking that responsibility. It's of like, I create my own wealth from where I'm at today. Like, I can't. Life is unfair, by the way. Like, life isn't fair. Like, the moment we think that things should be fair, and if I don't have equal to my neighbor, then I will be the unhappy one, and therefore I will be the one sitting and moaning, and I will spend my time that I have pissing and moaning on other people's opinions, which is like, you're actually wasting your time having negative emotions and energy. But also something that I was thinking, I think the problem also is that we measure success as in like monetary measurements, that success only is in like, oh, I've had these many companies and this much money and this. It's like, I think you can find other ways of measuring success. Like, you can be a successful parent. How many parents like probably quote unquote fail parenting because they're focusing too much on the business once they, so it's like, where do you measure? Because if you are so successful in one area, you might fail in other areas. So it doesn't make you might not make you feel more successful, because you feel like you're failing somewhere else. So it's like, it's so difficult to get, like, just go and like point fingers and say like, what's right, what is wrong? Because I can guarantee there will be, if she's working super hard now and she goes into this whole flow, she might lose the quote unquote best years of her life, and then she can't have kids, and she might regret that later on. So it's always a trade-off, and I just don't think that it's so easy. But I don't think that anyone should sit and have really strong opinions. In fact, if you have really strong opinions after hearing something, you're the one getting triggered, so it's your problem you're not dealing with, right? So yeah, that's my opinion. So I don't agree with you, but I also do really appreciate that. Like, I coach so many new moms at the moment. It's like, you do not have the same 24 hours. Like, you don't, like, full stop. So you can't be an efficient worker if you sleep 2 hours a night, or you wake up every hour of 24 hours for 9-12 months. You're not the same person. You can't be. So it is like, it's not black and white for me.
No, yeah, and I 100% agree. And I think the nature in which you perceive your 24 and how you set it all out, like if we look at like the uber basics of what you could do to maximize those 24 hypothetically and go with the Molly May place, like there will be, like with dieting, like there will be one big factor, which is fat loss or not, which is adherence. And I think with your 24 hours, if you're looking at it from a perspective of like how you can maximize it more, you have to look at the things that are probably holding you back. And like, if you're getting up at 10 every single day, and let's say, for example, you do not have a job, and you're like, well, it's easy for you to say because you don't have a job, or I don't have anything like that. Like, how many CVs did you write today? How many job applications did you write today? Like, how many opportunities did you go and speak to someone about? Did you wake up at 10, or did you go to, start at 7 and then, spend the day hunting for jobs? Like, there are so many different things that will categorize, did you maximize those 24 hours, as opposed to looking at the outcome of your life. And I think when those comments come about, people get the realization of they look at the assumption or the outcome of their lives and then base it based on, I couldn't do that because of this, I couldn't do that because of this. You start justifying or self-soothing because they're not in the same situation as her. And I think when you see people on those type of reality TV shows, you get a lot of them, you think that you understand them, or you think that you know them because you've created this bond and relationship with them because you've seen them on particular TVs, which makes them relatable, right? But then the problem with relatability is that then you almost could assume that you were going to be similar to them, because that's what relatability is. It's like, oh, I get you, or I understand you're very similar to I am in terms of personality, or I like what you're saying most of the time. You get this relatability, and then people think, oh, what if she's doing that? Why can't I do that? And then when someone says something triggering like that, which is quite polarizing, then that relatability is just took out completely out the window, which someone was quite used to. So I think there is that element of like social media relatability, which was so prominent and is needed to be able to be a social presence. But then when you then go and be polarizing in a way that you think is your truth, then people that actually thought that you were relatable then start backing up their ideas of why they're not in the same position as you because of this, and this. So I think there's an element of also that when you, and what I've realized this frequently over the course of the years, is that when you talk to people that are on different levels to you mentally and from a business perspective and have more acumen or just really just have a different drive to you, it's very much alarming and puts you in a different subset. Maybe people thought that the relatability to her was quite high and she was just this ditzy blonde that was kind of just got there because of her looks. And then she goes and has a very, very intelligent conversation with someone that is also very intelligent. It sets her in a different point or a different frame that you had her in the first place, which then creates that juxtaposition of the relatability. So I think you put someone in a room like that and you've never seen her act like that before, and it just shows you. And I've been around successful people, millionaires, people that have hundreds of millions of pounds, built businesses from zero to hundreds, like millions. Like, they are different. They're built different. As they say, built different. And that's because of the mindset that they have. It's never the physical attributes. Yeah, they work hard, they maximize their time in whatever way they have, but it's their mindset. So when they're speaking about their mindset and what they do, it's often quite polarizing for the general population because they don't know what it takes to be a CEO of companies, right? And like, people want to go and spend time with Steve Jobs, or they want to go and see that they'd like to have dinner with Jeff Bezos, but you would be completely overwhelmed where they are versus you in terms of mindset because of the trials and tribulations that they went through. And I think having that podcast is just an example of, it's supposed to be about the best minds that are in business, and unfortunately if you're not relating to that, that's because you're not in that same zone, and you're not playing a Premier League football, you're in League 3, and that's okay, that's just where you start. But you can't be a Cristiano Ronaldo if you don't know how to do a step over. So I think it's the relatability is also decreased. If you've seen Ronaldo in person and you played next to him, you'd be like, oh my God, he's way better than me. Oh my God, he can say that it's easy, but it's not. It's like, I'm just really struggling with this and this. He's got the best boots. You almost have that comparison, but also the paradox of comparison too.
Mm. Gosh, you talk so much, I actually lost my plot, but I got it back. I'm like, whoa, what was someone going to say? But here's the thing as well, and I lost it again, but I had two things. First of all, women in power, let's call them women in power, they oftentimes have more help than anyone. Like, they don't tell people how much help they get. So I think the problem with women as well, I mean, problem with most people, but I think women struggle to ask for help because they feel like they should be knowing everything. Like, I know, I've been there. I haven't asked for help when I've been stuck. And that keeps me from reaching that next level because my pride is too prevalent, because I believe that I should be doing everything on my own. And for women, I think it's a conditioned trait because they used to be the one doing everything. And then all of a sudden they started to go into the workforce. And then all of a sudden they started to become business owners and still kept the fort at home. So I think there is like this whole thing about like, I should do everything and I shouldn't ask for help and I shouldn't, so I think that's one for how to actually overcome it, is to actually realize that it's your pride that stops you. The pride of asking for help, or actually understanding that you don't need to do everything on your own. So that was the first thing that I thought about. The other one was actually way better, but I've lost it. So it might come back to me. Yeah, Kunal, take over.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned about relatability there. And it's also the element of like, because she's been on Love Island, you perceive that you're better than them because they're perceived as like, they're these dumb, you can say dumb blonde or whatever that is. And you're like, oh, they have no clue what's going on. But then, because again, reality TV is also perceived as such a way where they're like, why the hell did he say this? Why the hell did she say that? So dumb. But if you see social media commentaries are a lot like that, where a lot of people are very much judgmental of whatever's going on, right? So when you mentioned about relatability, it's like, hold on, wait, she's way better than me. Like, that's what's happened. And then it's just, everyone's like, whoa, sparked out these conversations, right? It's just come out with their own insecurity potentially as well at the same time. So I personally think it's the whole, and someone said this to me, one entrepreneur said this to me a good 10 years ago. He said, do you know why people watch EastEnders? Is because their lives, they're showing that life over there on EastEnders as worse than what they're having. So they want to watch something that's worse. So it makes them feel good about their own life. And it made me really think about EastEnders on that day. I was thinking, wow, that's actually so true. And it could be wrong, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And then you watch these new reality TV shows. Realistically, it's like an escapism to potentially whatever someone else is going through in their life. And then after you watch someone's reality TV, they come through it, they're like, oh, I'm 21 years old. Oh, you think, oh, this person is stupid or whatever. But then after you watch them or you listen to them, it's like at this podcast, you're like, oh, wow, she's actually way more intelligent than me. Then what do? You start sharing these memes across the board and you're thinking, then you don't realize what's actually happened. You're just following the crowd. Whereas she's done the opposite. She hasn't really followed the crowd apart from watching it just being on Love Island. And also you have to somehow fit the bill of getting into Love Island. Not everyone and their auntie gets into Love Island either. So, I think that's also another element as well, where it's like the relatability, but there's also like, I'm better than you, but then shit, actually you're not better than, I'm not better than you. And then it's the whole kind of, it sparks out a different conversation as well. Because how many people off Love Island are that successful as well? I mean, don't get me wrong, they probably had like crazy amount of deals and so on. And then she's the only one that's gone really top. So everyone thinks they're all on the same level playing field. But realistically, we know she's not on the same level playing field because, she's now actually, like I said, she's running companies and she's only 22 years old, by the way. Like if you type her name on Google right now, it's just articles after articles of like backlash. She's lost thousands of followers. But then I expect it because her followers are also going to be around the same age, if not young, if not around, 24 and below, right? Let's be honest, some 23-year-olds like are not going to do anything at all. Some of them are probably at uni, some of them probably what are they going to do? They can't relate to her. Let's just be honest, right? The reason why we can, like me and Nick can, for example, relate to her right now is because we are in businesses as well. Right? And even Emily, to a large extent, you probably relate to what she's probably said, and you're thinking, yeah, you know what? Because we all run businesses. That's the reason why. But I think I think what you said about relatability, but then also I probably would flip it and say people also think they're better than her.
Yeah. But I think, and this is actually what I was thinking before as well, the whole thing about relatability. When there's judgment, you're actually, again, like in your ego head, like you're watching something potentially because you want to be entertained, and subconsciously you have this idea of who like ditzy someone might be because the way that she looked. But she probably had a plan, and actually like this is going to help my business. So obviously she probably made a strategic move just entering that for a long-term picture. But I think also, just to bring it back, and this is actually, I guess, to really actually really agree with what she says, like at the end of the day, the reason why people think that they can't do it, it's because they have that limiting belief that if then that, like if I can't do this because of that, or if I do this, then this will happen or this won't happen. So I think it's also a limiting belief around time. Like if you don't believe that you don't have time, you can never make more time. Everyone, of course, as I say, like we have the same 24 hours. Yes, they're not equal in that sense that we have different types of responsibilities, but the resourcefulness within all of us is that we can find solutions to make more time, even if we have kids. I went to this business bootcamp and I spoke to this woman this weekend, and the sacrifices she's made, and it's like, they might be hard to make. You might have kids that say, Mom, I never see you. That's still a choice that you can make, either because you believe that it will give you the future that where you can kind of buy back time, as in, if I work really hard now, if I have a family, if I work really hard now, maybe for 2 years, I have to work really hard and make some sacrifices. But that means that in the future, I might be able to buy back time because now I can actually take more time off. I can choose my time. So I think we have to look at time not as like just a linear thing either. Like I really think that sometimes it's like there's a push and there's a rest. There's a push and there's a rest. And the more we are willing to push, regardless of our circumstance, there will be a time where that will pay you dividends, basically. So if you're not willing to pay the due now, in whatever circumstance that you have, then the dividends will never come because you weren't willing to pay for it. Like you only get what you're willing to pay for. So I do agree. But it's, as I say, like those sacrifices might be more emotionally hard for some people than for others because of the responsibilities that they have. That's all I'm saying. So, but the choices are still everyone's. Like you can get kids and fucking leave them. Like that's, people do that. You can like, yeah, I'm just gonna push this baby out and put it up for abortion. Like you do these things, like it happens all the time. So what you do with your choices, those are still choices. Then you can choose to keep the baby and love the baby and find ways to be successful anyway. Like you don't have to choose. And I think the problem is when we feel we have to choose. That's the problem. So.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree on that. And I think what you said about the dividend side of things, like there's nothing in my life from the world of business or in the last 10 years where I haven't done action, then received the benefits afterwards. That's the ultimate fucking down dog, literal on a plate scenario that happens everywhere, and people do not like to accept it. People want to get the accolades or the growth before they put in the action. Like there's been times before, every job that I've ever done, and Kim and I know this from like RMT, is I've always done it before getting paid for it. I've always done it to a high degree, show that I could do it, and then get paid for it. And that's the same as having those actions in 24. People like want to say, I'll do that when I get that position, or I'll do that when I get that job role, or, you know, if I was a CEO of a business, then I'd do that too. And it's like, well, nothing's stopping you being a CEO of a business. You can literally register a business on HMRC for like 27 quid. You know, and I think the two parts is like, one is that you've got to do things and take action before you see the returns on investment in anything that you do. If you want to start a new, if you want to be a football manager, you have to start coaching kids before you become a football manager. If you want to be a physio for a first team, you have to be a physio for a second team first. Like there's levels to this game. And then secondly is like what you mentioned about before is people are relating back to the financial assumption of where she's at because of the growth that she's had. But the fundamentals are that she works hard. She prioritizes her structure in her day to make sure she maximizes it. And she works on a project that she's really, really happy about, or she's really cares for. So therefore that carries into the stuff. You all can do that. There is nothing stopping you having a job that's meaningful, which most of you don't have because you all hate your fucking jobs. And then you do it to the best of your ability. That's what the fundamentals are to the mindset that she has. Now, do you have to wake up and go to 2 a.m. in the morning to work? No, I don't do that. And I've got a pretty decent business. Do you have to hashtag grind at 5 a.m. in the morning and not see the kids or not see anything in the daytime and not go to social events? No, your choice, what you do. But obviously, relative to growth, if you, as with everything, if you practice free kicks like David Beckham every single day, you're going to be able to whip one in the top corner much easier than someone that practices once a week. So it's relative to the amount, but success is not the end goal. Success is not the whipping into the top corner in Greece 2020 and banging it in the last minute. The success is the process of practicing those skills over time and getting more fulfillment out of it and making sure that you enjoy it and have some level of sacrifice and meaning throughout the process. Everyone can enjoy that same thing, which she's also saying. Like that's what I get from her meaning of what she says is that you put time into a craft, as much time as you can do, maximize the time that you do have, and then things will come from that. Like if you've only got 2 hours to practice one thing in a week, like for example, if you're online coaching and you've only got 2 hours a week to do so, you're not going to be as good as someone that's 40 hours a week in. But that's okay. But in a year's time, you're going to be way better than you were if you did 1 hour, or you're going to be way better than you did in 30 minutes. And that's that. You have the 24 hours. Like even if you're a mum and you're a new mum and you've got 30 minutes to do something that you really fucking love, that's 30 minutes better than nothing. And if you say that you don't have the time to do so, that's when you have to look at, is it significant that you want to achieve? Is it something that you really hold dear to your heart? Are you crap at time management? Or is it that you're stuck in a limiting belief that you're not already at success, which is something that you're deeming based on other people's values versus your own values? Like I could be really disappointed that my business isn't as big as other people's, but then I'm also looking at their 4-year game as opposed to my 1-year game. So like you can't deem success. And even if other people like K-Mac look at his business versus mine, and we could be really comparative. But the reality is that we're both in the same industry. We both kind of go with the same niches, but we've both got a completely different game. We play different rules. And that's judging. If I judge based on his, oh, he gets up and he reads a book every morning, or he's got a team of 7, or he's got a fucking, whatever, yoga teacher as part of his stuff. And I'm like, that's his game. That's his game that he's playing, but I'm maximizing my game the way that I can. And that will come, if you chase other people's stuff, you end up with nothing anyway that you like. I don't know where that goes.
No, but I think it's what, but I also think it's the age where she's 22. So I think it's the element of like I said, I think it's blown out of proportion. Like if Beyonce said this, let's be honest, I think Beyonce would be like wisdom, for example, right? And I think people don't also realize that is because they perceive Beyonce as like the higher power, right? They don't perceive Molly May as a higher power right now. They just perceive as like this 22-year-old girl. I can relate to you because you're on Love Island. I want to go on Love Island, and then they suddenly realize, damn, she's got a deal with this company, deal with that company. Now she's working this, because people don't, like I said, people didn't look at her work ethic beforehand. They never knew her work ethic until she actually mentioned it, right? So that's when people were like, whoa, you work hard. But then they had to find something on the podcast for them to blast her. Like it could have been anything, right? It was just that one little thing for people to be like, oh, because again, like I said, it's the whole perceived of like, I think I'm better than you because you're on Love Island, right? So it's one of those where I think, we'll see more of that. I don't think like someone from Love Island could do another podcast tomorrow. I reckon they'll get something similar, or they'll be like, what are you talking about? You have no fucking clue. You're on Love Island. That's how sometimes that's the judgment of Love Island, right? That's the problem. It's like anyone who does go on Love Island, potentially you're going to get judged just because you went on that TV show, and you'll never, quote unquote, be respected. And I think that's probably the case for her. But I think for most people, we're like, look, people get it. I think people get it because they're like, look, we respect you. But then I'm also seeing like right now, if you type her name on Google, it's like flipping shit ton of articles saying she's apologized for her comments. I would have doubled down on those comments, to be honest. I would have been like, are you kidding me? Why am I apologizing for this shit? But then I also get it because she's going to lose her brand, well, not brand, but she'll lose followers and then therefore influence and so on. Which, yeah, so I think it's a weird cycle, to be honest. And I kind of feel sorry for her because she's only 22 as well at the same time. And she'll probably be like, I've worked really hard for the last year, but then people were like, but you just post on Instagram and that's it. So, but they don't realize what that post means, right? That post means you end up buying 10 of those products, right? Lucy from down the street is want to go buy 10 of those products if I post, right? So they don't realize that. But again, it's one of those where it's a weird cycle, and she's probably going to get more backlash in the near, like she does another interview in 3 years' time, she'll probably get another more backlash because she's probably changed even more, and that's just, it's life as well. I remember telling Nate this. I remember I shared something about like, oh, this person gone to this mentor, and he was like, oh yeah, I didn't like the comparison. I'm like, that's just life, right? You're going to get comparisons anywhere you go. Like think about sports athletes. How many comparisons do they always get? Like you could be the best athlete, but they'll be like, oh, but you're not Jordan, or you're not this person, you're not that person. They still carry on. They're not going to stop and be like, oh, I'm getting comparisons, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. That's me going on a different tangent, to be honest. But I'm trying to get at. I mean, I think she's going to get probably a lot more backlash in the near future for anything she now posts. There'll always be something of like, yeah, but you said something stupid in 2021 or whatever that was, like, or 2022. Yeah, you said something then, or yeah. So I think it will always kind of come back to kind of bite it. I mean, she's also going out with a guy called Tommy Fury, right? And he also he's Tyson Fury's little brother, and he also is nothing like Tyson. He doesn't talk like Tyson. So it's also interesting, and that's how they perceive it, as like these two are like the Love Island couple. And even his boxing career has been impacted because of that, because they see him as just like Love Island dude. His own dad has come on our podcast before. He's like, if Tommy doesn't beat Jake, he doesn't knock him out, he's retiring. Imagine what that does to your confidence. He's like, if he doesn't beat this YouTuber, he's retiring. So sometimes, yeah, it's a lot of that kind of element to it where, yeah, Love Island can ruin your life or make your life. And for her, it's probably made her life, but at the same time, in a weird way, it's also kind of impacted in a different manner as well. So, yeah.
It would be so interesting to know, like, who actually, like, the age, how old they were. Obviously, if there were a lot of, you say there was a lot of women like slaying her, but like the age of these women and like where they come from, basically, because it would be interesting. And I think people forget as well, like we were all once 22, but we didn't have the same emotional intelligence. We didn't have the same way of communicating. We didn't have the experiences. So I think it's like, it's easy to judge someone based on how they speak, but we forget that we were all, like, I don't remember because you forget, but when I was 22, I was not this well-spoken. I did not have my emotional intelligence as I do today. So like, it's so easy to just say like, wow, you shouldn't have said that, but then forget the context of this is actually still a very smart, but still a young girl who has a lot still to learn about like life. And again, like, I don't know if they edited, like, you don't know if they edited anything out, if they like the context of it. And yeah, I want to listen to this interview to hear see how triggered I become. Yeah.
I generally don't think you'll be triggered. I honestly don't.
No,
think
I don't think I
triggered.
will. Like, but I think but also
like
bear in mind
said,
that people prioritize different things. Like some people love business and working. It's like, it's their passion. Like we do this as well. It's our passion as well. Like it's not just, oh, I just want to make money. It's like, we love this. We love running a business. We love everything that is about growth, right? But that's not everyone in this world. So we shouldn't like demonize anyone who has that as a driver in their life. Whereas other people have other drivers. So let's not make the people running businesses, quote unquote, better than anyone else, because it's not about being better than anyone else. It's just about choices. And it comes back to that. So we shouldn't feel bad about the choices that we've done. If I didn't choose to be a business owner, then I should have been happy to be employed. Like, you know, we should just not think of things as better or worse. Because I think that's what it comes down to as well.
Yeah, I also think is you got to look at a lot of women who follow her are going to be around the 25 and below age range. A lot of 30-year-old women may follow her, for example, because they've seen Love Island, but a lot of them, if you did like I don't know, some sort of quick search and you found out like data, I guarantee you a lot of them will be quite young. But the backlash also has come from like, you know, I don't know who it's come from. Like it's weird. It's just been like, I've seen more ladies, for example, than guys. Guys are like, she actually said something legit there. Like, it was weird, right? Guys actually backed her up. Women were like, no, kind of thing, straight away. So I found that also interesting as well. Because normally women would back up other women on that scenario as well, right? That's another thing. So I didn't see that happening too much.
Yeah. No, you need to send me a link to this.
Yeah, it's Nate's favorite podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that relatability thing, and obviously they're probably the crux of this as well as what you've been speaking about, is the element of who is relatable to a 22-year-old businesswoman that earns millions and has a mindset like that. Like if I had that mindset at 22, Jesus wept. You know what I mean? Like you just think that maybe the older population or the people that are more maybe she's in that particular phase of her life or that particular part of her life, she's vastly superior or advanced compared to the normal age of 22. So therefore, that's why maybe the older individuals are like, oh, well, like us are like, well, actually, fair play, that's a very, very good shout. But the people of her age are like, that's so unrelatable because of this, and this, and that it's just a case of probably like, you get it with people that are way beyond their times as well. Like people speak a certain way, or you see 24-year-olds speak a certain way, and you're like, Jesus Christ. Or you see like, I don't know, comics or whatever, they're well beyond their times in terms of their age range. And then those people that are in that same age range are like, I can't relate to you, but you get the older ones that are actually in that emotional bracket. So I think it's a course of like, if an 18-year-old said shit like that as well, you'd just be like, oh, 18-year-old, you don't know what you're fucking talking about, you're just privileged, And I think you put a 22-year-old in that bracket too. So and like it was proven the week before, a CEO male mid-40s said the exact same thing, but no backlash, right? So it's who your audience is as well. Like if I started slaying Indian people and being quite derogatory toward them, I would get massive backlash because that's my target audience. But equally, if I was K-Mac, maybe, and he started slaying those, it'd probably look as like useful tips or hints or tricks of like eye-opening stuff, because it's not relatable from a white dude, right? So like it's probably the similar situation there. You don't know our circumstance, you don't know what I do, and the amount of times I've heard that too. You're not Gujarati, you don't know what we're talking about, and like when I do explain that I do know what they're talking about, or I do know that their context, then they have nothing to say. So I think it's also very similar to that as well.
But I think the biggest like the reason we're having this conversation is because there are people in this world that make assumptions that when you do X, you become Y. Like when you do Love Island, you are a stupid person. Like that's essentially like the assumption has been, because if she wouldn't have gone on Love Island, she would have just been this like wonder child who would have just rise from the dirt and become this very strong. Maybe her success would have been delayed because she didn't have the exposure so like greatly, but she probably still would have been. She probably would have been. She would have been successful because it's her mindset. But now, because people have the assumption that people on Love Island are stupid people, because that's how they get portrayed usually. We also forget that media will portray you in the way that they want to portray you. Doesn't matter if you're like, they can still make they could make Steve Jobs look like a bimbo, like honestly, if they wanted to. So it's the assumptions that X means Y that makes it a problem.
Another thing is the whole like, you've been on Love Island, that's why you've got this money, and that's why you've got this deal with Pretty Little. That's what the other people think. Like, don't get me wrong, that plays a little part to it for sure. But if you're not good, eventually they're going to be like, look, we can replace you with someone else ASAP. Like we can say you're done here and it's okay. Like they can pay $100K and be like, all right, now you're done. That's it. You know, your deals, your contract is done. She had to, after a while, realize like, okay, I'm not just this Love Island person. I can't just be posting on Instagram every other minute. I've actually got to be focused and I got to do this, right? And even Stephen Bartlett, right? Credit to him. He wouldn't be interviewing someone for his podcast if he didn't think that person is relatively done well, because he doesn't interview just any other Joe blog every other day. He doesn't interview people from Love Island just like that either, right? So there has to be some sort of like an element. And again, that was probably people's first ever exposure to that kind of conversation as well, right? If you think about her market or her market audience is 20, let's say 25 and below, they don't listen to Diary of a CEO. Let's be dead honest. They don't listen to podcasts at all. This is probably the first ever podcast they've ever like gone and listened to. And they thought, and again, this is me making assumptions right now, but I'm just trying to say, if people who got massive fans of her are they also going to be the ones who are going to be like, what is this podcast all about? Why is she talking about this inspirational content? Like all I know Molly May is this lady from, just posing, that's it, from Love Island. So that definitely comes in and plays a huge role. So I do think that Love Island stigma probably has impacted her quite a bit. Again, it depends. This will be all forgotten in 6 months' time. Let's be dead honest about this. This will be all forgotten in 6 months. She'll release something else. She'll be okay. Like she'll be fine until she said something else, which could be again quite polarizing. But I think she'll be okay with it.
Just a fun fact: one of the princesses in Sweden she was in Love Island, Sweden, and she's a princess.
That's mental.
So there you go. It works out well.
That's very mental. I never thought Roy would be in Love Island. Imagine like Kate Middleton's like, fuck it, William, I'm going today. That would crack me up. Imagine the viewership.
She was married into the family. She wasn't actually one of the princes. I don't think the princesses could have gone like the.
But even if you're married into the family, I thought her head would have got chopped off or something like that, because you're like, how are you gonna do this and so on.
Yeah, no. So we do have a Love Island veteran in our royal family. There you go.
Firstly, I didn't even know you had Love Island Sweden.
That Love Island Sweden would be phenomenal. In terms of the girls, anyway. Old and blonde, or tune me in. Where do I sign up?
Probably go on YouTube. There you go. Any final parting words?
I think this will carry on. Like there's some sort of like, people will always be like, having listened to a lot of podcasts over the last like 10 years. Like I loved podcasts when it even first came out and so on. I was like, I always loved that conversation, the debate element. And I remember listening to some sort of podcast, and then you go on like social media, like this person said that, like I listened to a podcast called Brilliant Idiots, and Charlemagne the God back in the day said something controversial about something, and then everyone could really backlash. Now, in the moment when I listened to it, I was like, I didn't feel any way where he said something wrong. But I realized people don't listen to the whole lot. They just make an assumption because their friend said it, and then it's like Chinese whispers across the internet. So I think that's also very, very dangerous. And that's where like, Trump is always like, oh, fake news and stuff like that. Back in the day, to a large extent, he was actually right because a lot of the stats were fake, and he called them out. So it's a lot happening even in probably the world now of social media, is that, if one person says something, that will be like perceived as truth whereas reality is that's not the truth. So I think this will still carry on. It may not just be with like Molly May, it could be with someone else now. It could even be Stephen Bartlett in the future because he's so on the podcast. He may sound something controversial. Everyone's like, whoa, whoa, and he loses like half of his viewership potentially. Who knows? But I don't think he will. But like I said, more and more is going to pop through because of social media and Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it. Done.
Perfect.
Girl alone.
Guys, we see you next week. Have a good one.
Adios. Peace.